Hey, it's syndicated radio talk show host, author, singer Al Cole, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. I come from CBS Radio. My shows are nationally syndicated, and I've helped pave the way to treating women, guys too, with the dignity that they deserve. And I do that in many different ways. Of course, my show, People of Distinction. I have about 300 people who come on my show every year, and they're distinctive people. And they come from distinctive areas. Publicists, book publishers, agents, and companies nationally who bring me my guests. And also, my shows are aired on a very dignified radio network out there, Apple's iTunes Radio Network. Under their professional news talk division, they air CBS shows, Fox News, NPR, BBC, and even C-SPAN, top talk in the country, around the world on Apple's iTunes Radio Network. And I have some wonderful associates out there, too, including the great Ariana Huffington, founder of the Huffington Post, and her alliance with me through her Thrive Global Network that features millions and gets a lot of feature for people of distinction as well. And not only that, but the great Dee Wallace. Dee Wallace is the actress who starred in one of the biggest films ever, Steven Spielberg's E.T., the extraterrestrial. And Dee is one of my talk show clients. She airs her show on my Al Cole Broadcasting Network, aired through Apple, for extra visibility for Dee's show and other podcasters who air their shows on my network as well. Dee's show is Conscious Creation, and we love consciousness here on People of Distinction. Coming from CBS Radio, I'm also a national voiceover artist as well as a business and communications expert, and it all comes under my media consulting. I help people to know how to talk good. Yeah, CBS broadcasters, and put their messages in gripping ways, and I help people independently around the country to do the same thing if they're going to be doing a lot of talk with live performance talk or podcasting talk, interviews on AM radio, FM radio, or TV. And I introduce people to really how to do it major media style, get their messages out there profitably, how to become entrepreneurial at what they do, selling books, selling their coaching programs, or anything else that they're doing. And also, I have my People of Distinction Humanitarian Awards events, national events in New York, as well as Capitol Hill with members of U.S. Congress, U.S. Congressman Rob Whitman of Virginia, sponsoring the events at the Rayburn House Office Building, and also great events in Florida, Atlanta as well. Check it all out at peopleofdistinction.org. And you can email me on anything that I do. Email me at alcoholic@gmail.com. You heard me right. That's ALCOLEHOLIC@gmail.com. We love that. And, I got to give the emphasis to my CBS radio listeners coming up with that handle, Alcoholic. Seems like from day one, my listeners have been saying, Al, we love what you're doing there, brother. In fact, we're hooked on it. We're alcoholics. And I'm also a New York Times bestselling author with Chicken Soup for the Soul. Chicken Soup for the Soul is distributed by CBS's Simon & Schuster, so we keep it in the family. Hey, coming up, a lady that's going to help your family with freedom. Now, her name is Jule Gaige, and she's written a wonderful book. In fact, a few books that she's going to be talking about. We're going to be starting out with this one, Beyond the Spark of Freedom. Whoa. Now, I know my listeners. I know that you're into freedom. And I know that you're into freedom in a very, very special sort of way. Now, freedom is the freedom to actually connect to the reason for our birth. I'm going to put it that way. All right. So we're babies and we come out and we say to ourselves, wow, I'm here. I made it. I'm alive. And I feel free because I love life. See, love is really the seed of freedom. When one loves something, one feels free around what one loves. Now, the problem is that in our world, sometimes we get even rejected by love. And then we feel, closed in, and we kind of lose it a little bit. And a lot of the institutions of our world They close us in, we feel less free and even suffocated sometimes. But you know what? We can always go back to the seat of freedom, which is love, if every once in a while we get to know ourselves a little bit better, take some alone time, and reflect on some of the love that we've given, the love that we've received. We start doing that, we elevate ourselves, and we go back to that beautiful innocence of love from whence we came, that beautiful baby of innocence that says, I love life. I want to learn more about the beauty of life. And when we learn more about the beauty of life and love, it's an energy, and we can spread that energy around. Yeah, that beautiful love energy, and we can receive that beautiful love energy. And freedom is also a responsibility. It's our responsibility to help others to be free. Not just, we're free and we don't care about nobody else. No. Freedom is spreading the freedom around and allowing other people to be free as well. And comporting ourselves that way in a societal beauty that now we can call real democracy and real freedom in the end. You get it, people? That's what we're going to be talking about on People of Distinction with Al Cole. And Jule is right at the helm here. We're going to invite her on right after I invite you to go to her website, julegaige.net. And Jule is Jule, Gaige is Gaige.net. Welcome, Jule, to People of Distinction with Al Cole. It's really a pleasure to have you on today. How are you, Jule?
I am wonderful, and that was a perfect introduction because you expressed the pure love, and it's really the love from which we become, and that's that spark of freedom.
Absolutely.
It's the spark that is in us, that exists as part of our consciousness. However, what happens, we forget about it. With the day-to-day world that we've created, we forget that there is something incredible that's right here to support us to move beyond, and it's in us. How often, Al, do we look outside of ourselves to try to find, what is my joy? Where can I find it? How do I gain success? Well, the success is in us, and we have the capacity to do this. But what we have to do is identify what it is that holds us. Because the bondage that we've created keeps us from, it co-ops. Our mind co-ops the spark of our freedom.
Well put. Now, let's get into it and turn a few pages in your book, Beyond the Spark of Freedom. What is beyond the spark of freedom here, Jule?
Okay, beyond the mind is what I talk about. Mind is a part of consciousness. Okay, it's an incredibly important part of consciousness. It's through the mind that we're able to create the experiences that help us to determine where our blocks are. I call it our breaks that are caused by our mind. So let's assume that you have lack. I'll use that because I just had it this morning from another person that I was dealing with. If you're lacking financial gain, for instance, what's happening is you're projecting from your mind. You've learned lack. How often you've heard this from your parents or from your social group, never having enough. Well, that lack projects and creates your situation. In fact, your mind co-ops the capability to generate unlimitedness because we truly, Al, we are unlimited beings. We're free to be totally and completely unlimited.
We love that.
And that spark is the burning desire that we have. And that's what I called it because when I felt it myself, I was a practicing lawyer and a CPA, and I could always feel this energy, and it was a burning desire to expand and develop, to be whole and free. I just didn't know how to do it, Al. And so I left the practice of law. I started to wander, and I wandered pretty much unrelentingly. I just continued to move forward and backwards just to find out. And then I determined what are these holds? What is holding me from being whole and being free?
Wow.
Okay, and that it was that desire that I had that drove me to move forward and to be. It's love and wisdom is our truth.
I love that. My listeners love that too. Loving wisdom is
Yes.
our truth. And in your case, you were a lawyer,
Yes.
and then I'm not saying that that's when you found out about the wisdom that you're speaking of. However, did you use any of that wisdom even beforehand? Maybe in your childhood, maybe going to law school, maybe being a lawyer and reaching out to people with wisdom, or was it after that, maybe the stresses and strains of being a lawyer, that you just needed a lot of alone time? How did you come about that wisdom, Jule?
This is a question that's asked of me a lot. It's kind of a funny situation. I had 4 law practices in Pennsylvania, and I was going on to my 5th. And I said, you know what? Something's missing here, because I knew that the expansion is part of our capacity, but I kept looking externally to expand instead of looking inside of me. And it was so funny because, and I mean this, it was pretty hilarious, because there was a woman that came in and she was dealing with a situation from her husband who had just deceased. And as I was speaking to her, she said, you know what? I think you're a shark. And I went, oh my God. It was a revelation. It was revelatory for me, because I stopped and I said, wait a minute, there's something that I'm projecting that isn't aligned with the free will of Jule. And the true potential for pure love and wisdom is to be one with the whole. We don't know that. We haven't come to that terms because we're so busy externalizing everything. I mean, I just had meetings with this wonderful lady. Her brother was horrifically killed in a motorcycle accident. In fact, it was the chapter 1 that began the Spark of Freedom, Beyond the Spark of Freedom. And that family came together, and they were really, really reveling in the fact that, okay, what do they do now? Because they've lost this person, and it was a horrendous death. And the lady immediately started to connect with me that she was victimized by all of her experiences. And I said, you know what, Mar? You can overcome being a victim. And we can, Al. We have the capacity to rise above being a victim. But in order to do that, we need to identify what it is that's holding us into that victim pattern.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lovely, it's called the Repairing the Breaks in Mind. It's like seven tiers of energy that we have inside of us. The one being that spark of freedom, which is so vital because that's what keeps us moving. It helps us to achieve and move beyond. But what we need to do is realize that there's a part of us that is held in being a victim, in being ill, in being projecting of lack, being in the midst of lack. But then there's another area where manipulation becomes apparent. Manipulation and the power and the control. And oftentimes, Al, what happens is the power and control of us is there to support us so that we don't have to feel victimized.
Mm-hmm.
But either of them are correct, because we can rise above being the victim. We can rise above the need to manipulate others and ourselves to realize love and move beyond. And that's really what we're here to accomplish, to repair the breaks that keeps us separate from our unlimitedness.
Look at that. Well put. We love that on People of Distinction with Al Cole. A special guest, Jule Gaige, talking about Beyond the Spark of Freedom, her new book. And I want you to run to the website here in order that, julegaige.net. And Jule is talking about synergy as much as anything else. She learns wisdom from others and she imparts wisdom to others. And it becomes that beautiful, beautiful energy cycle where, wow, once somebody is learning from somebody else and trusting that way, they can actually trust that their energy is going out to other people to help them, and they receive that energy from the people that they're helping. That is real freedom, people, in love, and we love that on People of Distinction. You have a couple of other books, too, that are out now. To tell us a little bit about those as well.
Well, the first one I wrote is I Gave Up My Life to Find It. And that was the first book that I wrote. And it was premised on the notion of all of the emotional holds that I was having. And I talked about the repair of the breaks caused by mind. And it was succinctly in relation to those breaks. And I talked about how I formulated a way to repair the breaks, repair illness that's in us. We're the creator of this, and we don't realize it. So I spent a good amount of my travel time going through and creating a repair of the breaks process. It's identifying the break and then realizing that I am the creator of that energy. It's keeping me separate from unlimitedness. And then in a nutshell, it's about integrating all of the energy that we have in us to realize what you were talking about in the beginning in the introduction, our pure love. Mm-hmm. And when we're coming from pure love, we're projecting that onto other people, and they're projecting it to us. And that's really what we create. I wanted to just bring this in because it keeps popping up into my mind. Mm-hmm. There was a gentleman, I was on my way into a meeting, a business meeting, and there was a homeless gentleman. He had a big sign, I am homeless, please give me money, I need food. Well, I went over to this beautiful being and I said to him, I'm not going to give you money, but why don't you come with me? And I took him to lunch. Mm-hmm. Al, it was the most beautiful energy because what was happening is he was being able to feel love. He was able to identify it. There were tears streaming down his eyes. Yep. The people that were afraid of him started to rally around him, and it was just totally beautiful. Wow. But that's the premise of what we are. I mean, we're incredible beings and we have forgot it. We've lost it. I mean, look at our country, look at our world.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy. I'll tell you, I love this.
Well, that was the first book I wrote. Mm-hmm. And then the second book is The Infallible Way. It talks about it in a little bit grander style. It's not as emotionally driven. It was much more beyond the emotion, which was pretty cool. And I love it. It was my favorite book until I wrote the Beyond the Spark of Freedom. And I meant my favorite book that I wrote.
You met it. Look at that. See, I love that too, because I, as a writer and as a singer, musician, songwriter as well, I know that I can be inspired by my own creations.
Yes.
And many times the inspiration that I get from my own creations, inspiration that I was given by that higher power to create those creations in the first place. And then it becomes very synergistic. We love this. Beyond the Spark of Freedom and also Jule's other books you can find at julegaige.net. Wonderful interview. Let's cap it off with a little bit of possibility thinking, Jule. Going back to freedom. Now, the freedom that you were talking about, the freedom that I was talking about, and are talking about in this great exposition of people of distinction, if that came to pass in our world big time, and we know that it's not quite there yet, but if it were quite there at some point in our human evolution, what kind of world would that look like that it doesn't look like now, Jule?
I think that there would be a great deal of harmony, and I think that individuals, I don't see that everybody will come to terms with the resolve in them. However, they can be helped in such a greater way so that the dependency on lack, the dependency on illness, because they become part of the energies of addiction. I think that we will support. It's very similar to what occurred with me and the gentleman, Philip, who is the homeless gentleman that I was speaking of. It's just so wonderful because it's not about giving the guy $1 and saying, go away. It's about giving the guy the time and the heart energy of love. When I left this man, it was a great big hug that we left with. That's how we moved through the experience. But the cool thing is we can do that with everybody. We can do that with individuals that are ill. We can do that with individuals that are suffering in so many ways. Look at the hunger strife. We can support people, not to project the lack, but project unlimitedness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what you're here to do, my dear. And I think that's what we're all here to do, if we find that spark of freedom and allow it to move forward.
Oh, boy, absolutely. That is the reach of our human family love potential.
Yes. And it is pure love.
Yeah.
And I feel that from you, sir.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is really, really a wonderful interview. And I'm going to cap it off with a couple of cents of my own here to underscore the great sense of our guest, Jule Gaige, here on People of Distinction with Al Cole. And when we talk about love, okay, so love comes actually from that beautiful creative force that we came from and that beautiful innocence that I was talking about as a baby. Now, we do, from time to time, experience that wonder of love in our greatest love relationships. And we can capture that. If we know that it's there, if we know what to capture, all we have to do is look at our loved one. Even if our loved one is not face to face with us, we can even visualize that beautiful face of the loved one or faces of loved ones. And we can say to ourselves, in a kind of even prayer, how can I serve you even better? I love you so much that I want to be a great example of what you want in this world, because you deserve it. Not the things that you want in this world that are going to rip people off. No, not the things that you want in this world that are going to be greed-oriented, but the things that you want in this world that you have the capacity, that genius to help other people with. And I am going to try to be an exemplary aspect of that, an example of that to you. Now, there are 2 people, maybe 10 people, maybe 100 people in alignment right now with beautiful human energy. Every once in a while, you're actually with that person. Every once in a while, you're comporting with that person conversationally, maybe. But you don't have to be. You can just, your beautiful consciousness goes beyond just your body place. It goes beyond where you are physically. It goes into the universe. And just by visualizing that, you can spark so many people out there who already know that you love them. And now it's a reminder to them, like a prayer that goes out and says, oh, yes, this person think about me again. And they shoot a prayer out to you. Also, one other thing, do it with people that you don't know. Yeah, it doesn't have to be limited just to your loved ones. Now the whole universe, and I mean that, is privy to your prayers. And you can do that. Visualize whatever the face of the universe is, people. Whatever the face of whatever you call that mastermind that got you here in the first place. Visualize that face and say, I love you. And that's what I'm here for, to serve you with love. And I know that you want to serve me with love. We are free at that point. We are doing the will of freedom, and we are loving that beautiful force that got us here in the first place. And boy, that force is giving it out to the universe at that point. You are the beautiful dynamo of whatever got you here in the first place. A lot of times we use that, we call it God. I don't shrink from that word. You call it anything you want. You are the beautiful communication with that. And as you are, you can serve others with that beautiful love energy, no matter where they are, no matter who they are, because they exist just like you exist. And that's the message of People of Distinction with Al Cole. And especially when we have a great guest like Jule Gaige to also reinforce that message with her books, and especially Beyond the Spark of Freedom. And you can order all of her books at julegaige.net. Thank you. And I should also say, I would be remiss if I didn't say this. She was brought to me by UR-Link. All right. UR-Link Publishing, one of the best publishing companies around the globe, and they can help you. If you got a book to move it with UR-Link. UR-Link.com, UR-Linkpublishing.com. Yeah, that's where you want to go to make contact with UR-Link. Thank you so much, Jule, for being my special guest here today on People of Distinction with Al Cole. I'll invite you back again for updates on all of your great work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Al. It was wonderful. Wonderful being with you. Oh, yeah, you're awesome.